The end of the journey. We've reached the world tree, Jin and Amalthus have been defeated, Rex found his answers, and managed to have only one conversation with the architect himself, Klaus. Now it's time to end this tale of ours. And funnily enough, this final bit isn't so much focused on Rex, as it is on Pyra and Mithra. We'll get to that, and there's still some really important finality to Rex as a character in this final section. So let's go piece by piece as we wrap up our analysis of Rex as a character. My favorite Xenoblade character ever. So the Malus fight happens, we hit him with one last burning sword that went Super Saiyan, to bring our fight with Malus completely full circle. And Malus lays there defeated. Core Crystal compromised, a point of no return. And then we get to the real reason of Malus as a character. What they're really trying to say here, and how it directly relates to Rex as a character. Malus contemplates what it would have been like had Rex been his driver instead, what worlds he could have seen, what he could have experienced, what life could have been, who he could have even been. But when Rex starts to really sympathize with that perspective, Malus admits, in the end, there was only one driver ever for him, Amalthus. Malus was brought into this world from Logos' core crystal and siphoned off of Amalthus' nihilism and hatred for humanity. Malus was a product of his environment. However, that's not the full story, for Malus is still a character all of its own. He's not just an extension of Amalthus. He never actively decided to do what was right or to believe in humanity or to even try and consider another perspective. And that was what kept him on the path of villainhood. He accepted his lot and walked the path Amalthus set out for him, and it led to him falling to Rex's sword. This moment sets up an analog to Pyra and Mithra. Had it not been for Adam and Rex to teach them right from wrong, and to break them out of their shell of self-hatred and melancholy, could they have turned out just like Amalthus did, or something akin to him? It's one of those what-ifs that will always encircle and ensnare the story and character of Malus, because he did not need to be this way. He was clearly capable of showing empathy and forming relationships with others because he did it with the other Torna members. He genuinely cared about the well-being and the goals of everyone else in Torna, especially Jin. But Malus had a goal: to destroy the world and wipe the slate clean, and he never was willing to not walk that path. And with Ion's defeat, the Beanstalk, look, I still laugh every time I hear that name. It starts to crumble, and Rex and crew must race to find a way to stop it. But Numa already had another plan. With the conduit starting to fade out of this world, Klaus's life starts to slip away, like the last remaining grains of sand in an hourglass. And it's in this moment that Numa plays her hand, to sacrifice herself to take control of Ion one last time and use the remaining power it holds to destroy and annihilate the Beanstalk, preventing it from wiping everyone else out on Allrest, saving the crew and Rex in the process. And it is here where Rex is faced with one last fork in the road, one last choice to make before journey's end, to struggle and fight and almost certainly sacrifice himself to try and save Numa in a fool's errand, or to accept her sacrifice and lose the one or two that he loves, and not to let her death be in vain. Storytelling-wise, it's a bit of a sucker punch, ain't it? Since it comes out of left field, we just won. We won the day. You may recall Pyra and Mithra's confession on the cliffs of Mornitha. They initially wanted to reach Elysium to ask their father, the architect, to let them die. They were tired and didn't want to hurt anyone else anymore, like they did back in Torna. And now they made it to Elysium, not wanting to die, but willing to do so to protect the ones they love. A similar reason before, but with a foundation now built on hope instead of dread. Rex forgets the obvious play, I'm just saying, of bringing Rock out so he can do something since Chapter 3. Having him fly Rex a bit over the canyon, or just fully flying him over, then using the grapple shot, or the hook shot, anchor shot, whatever you want to call it, to get over there. Probably because of how flustered he is in the heat of the moment. And Poppy and Morag reveal how much Rex has helped them over the course of their journey. They don't say it out loud, but it reassures Rex that it was all worth it, and had meaning and imparted genuine good. This was for the best, and it's the ultimate test of maturity and emotional strength for Rex, to showcase how much he has truly grown on his journey. It was always one of Rex's strong suits looking back on it. Sure, he'd get sad and cry, but it would never be for long, because he knew what he would have to do, and he was willing to take it on the chin and keep moving forward. He gets back up, ready for another round, and then a bit of poetry happens. Numa, having essentially direct access to the powers of the conduit at this point, fixes Rex, recombines the core crystal, and removes it from both of their hearts. This moment is highly symbolic. Rex was initially stabbed by Jin because he was naive and didn't understand the ways of the world and didn't anticipate something like that happening. He needed Pyra and Mithra from that point on to learn and safeguard each other, and to literally give him life because he was dead. But his story reached its conclusion, or close enough to it, where he is finally able to stand on his own 2 feet. He has matured as a character and is able to go on, no longer reliant on Pyra and Mithra. Now, I've done analyses on the ending of Xenoblade 2 before, and I'll leave a link in the description to a couple of them, where I go over the Klaus and Numa angle in more detail, but this is Rex's last real choice of the game, to let Pyra and Mithra sacrifice themselves, and that was the important aspect of Pyra and Mithra's sacrifice in that scene. Not the fact that they were dying, but the fact that Rex had the choice to make, and he did. That they went from characters wanting to die out of melancholy and guilt to characters willing to sacrifice themselves so that the ones they love can live on. And that Rex gains the emotional maturity throughout the game up to this point in time to not just cry and moan about it, but be willing to let them make their choice and to not let it be in vain. Rex had made choices before in the game, namely with Vandom, especially early on, where his own selfishness to do what he wanted to do cost other people their lives. Remember the fight when he first met Vandom, how he overexerted Pyra there? He learned quickly, didn't he? And then at the end of chapter 3, had they just run away, it's likely Vandom could have made it. But Rex didn't. He stayed, and he charged headfirst into the inevitable without thinking, without relying on others, and without working together, and Vandom had to bail him out at the cost of his life, and Mithra had to awaken to finish the job. Rex is able to realize he's done good for the others in his party. He's learned, he's grown, he's matured, he's become a better person, and is willing to let Pyra and Mithra sacrifice themselves at the very end. In that moment, the scene did what it set out to do. It showcased the development and finality of Rex's character arc. From here on, it's Klaus in the background who comes into play, and we just have to let him cook. He hears One Last Year. One Last Year was not just a song to make us sad, it's an actual part of the story that's going on here. Because this is Monolith, and they're experts at utilizing every aspect of this experience to further the story of the game. The song playing in the post-credits scene in the new world of Allrest, and he hears his daughters crying out to him to find some way, somehow to extend their clock for the moment of the end. As they stood on the precipice of death, they realized they didn't want to die. They wanted to live. They didn't want to forget. Klaus hears their pleas, and with the last bit of his strength and the last glimmer of the conduit that remains before it flashes out of existence, does the one thing he can. As a father, he's finally able to grant his daughter's one and only wish, to live. He reactivates their core crystal and does so in a way that splits Pyra and Mithra apart, to live their own lives. The reason this happens, though, is because of Rex, and this is the reason that this scene works, and why I view this scene as pivotal. Because Rex was able to thank Klaus for the life he let them live. Yeah, it was hard, yeah, there was pain and rocky roads, but thank you for the gift of life anyways, despite all of the pain, because at the end of it all, it was worth it. And for a character like Klaus, wrecked by guilt and seeing what the world of the Bionis and Mechonis suffered from, under the thumb of his other half Zanza, Klaus thought he failed to do any semblance of good and was willing to let Malice wipe the slate clean. He thought he was nothing more than a failure of a god, and Rex essentially made Klaus realize that it was worth it, that he had done some measure of good, it had meaning. And with a newfound acceptance and glimmer of hope, he does the one thing he can, to grant the one wish of his daughters and give them a chance at a real life and happiness, not just bound by the responsibilities of being an Aegis. The story of Rex is the story of a kid just trying to support his family and village, who is thrust onto the world stage with far too much unreasonable responsibility and expectation for someone of his experience and age. He is forced to learn the ways of the world and to mature quickly to respond to them. He trips up, he falls, and sometimes it's all too much. He's not perfect, but through his own positivity and optimism, he's able to keep moving forward, to take another step, to try and achieve his dream of Elysium. Sometimes he has to lean on the relationships and friends that he has formed, and that's fine, because they're all just trying to reach Elysium together. And then he learns that it's not a matter of reaching some arbitrary paradise, for there is no singular Elysium there that will take all their troubles away to solve all the world's problems. The true Elysium isn't some corny, it was inside of us all along, BS either. No, Elysium at the end of the day, the end of the road, was a grind, where day in and day out we put one foot in front of the other to work together, to actively choose to believe in the good humanity can provide and offer, and not to dwell on the evil and the twisted. Sometimes it can all seem too much, and we fall, and we scrape our knees and lose those we love, and sometimes all we can do in the moment is to lay down and cry our eyes out, to let all those emotions bubble up to the surface and overload, and that's fine. But with those around us, together, and through our own strength, our own perseverance, we can always continue taking another step, and when one of us falls, the others can be there to pick them back up, to work day in and day out, to create our own Elysium, because like this new world, it's a blank canvas, and every day we get that choice, to throw it all away, or place down another piece that, alongside others, can blossom into a hopeful tomorrow. That is the story of Rex and the lesson he learned, and the main message of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And that is why I view this ending to be a masterpiece, and why I view him as one of my favorite characters of all time, and especially my favorite Xenoblade character of all time, because every piece of the puzzle that is this game's plot adds to that message and helps shape Rex as a character. A kid who needs to grow up quickly but learns not to forego his optimism or his idealism, but to hone and refine them for how the world really is, and to learn not to throw it all away for Elysium, but to shape the world that we know into Elysium. And the ending works so well because it relies on that principle, relies on the principle that Rex was able to instill good, to instill his optimism and idealism into others. Like Klaus, like Pyra, like Mithra. Pyra and Mithra are willing to sacrifice themselves. And that would have happened. They would have died, had it not been for Rex putting that idealism and optimism and hope back into Klaus, to tell him that it was all worth it. And because of that, Klaus was able to say, you know what, I may be going now, but damn it, I'm going to make sure my daughters are fine. I'm going to do one thing for them, because I was never able to be there before. And it brings the whole plot full circle. For Rex, who thought the Architect could save the world, he was the one to save the Architect. That is why this ending works so well, and why I wouldn't change a thing about it. And where will his story go in Xenoblade 3's DLC? I don't know. Sure, we can have our theories, and Lord knows I have mine. But at the end of the day, we just don't know where Rex's story will go. But for me, Xenoblade 2 was a fulfilling story to me, with one of my favorite endings of any game and any story that I've ever played, and Rex is a key reason why. Xenoblade 2 is my favorite Xenoblade game of all time. It's also one of my favorite games of all time. It's my second favorite game of all time, and for good reason. Sure, it has its falls and its pitfalls, gets a bit tropey here and there, but the strengths of the story and the strengths of Rex's character shine through far more than the pitfalls, in my opinion. And at the end of the day, the story of Xenoblade 2 and the story of Rex is one that you don't need to be a nihilist, you don't need to be a pessimist. You know what? Optimism and idealism are pretty freaking cool, and they can do some really good things into this world. You just gotta know how to use them. And with that, I will bid you all adieu. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Thus ends our Rex analysis series. Thank you all for tuning in for all these episodes, or if you only tune in for this part or only tune in for a couple of seconds, I appreciate it. I hope you all enjoyed our little trip down Rex's memory lane. Stay safe, everybody. Have a great day. Leave a like and subscribe to see future analyses, to see future videos, because trust me, we will be covering the DLC the second it comes out, and the second we get another trailer, I'm just saying. Have a great day. Stay safe, everybody. Have a great day. Go play some video games if you can, and as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody.